So our series, we're shifting now, and you guys know we're in the Learn section, or you could call it Grow. We're in the Grow section of our time, and one of the things that was just coming to our minds as we finished 1 Corinthians, I think there's a number of words you could use to describe the intersection series, but certainly sophisticated or complicated or involved. It seemed to us, a number of us, as we chat and gather and try to consider where we are, our interest is to say, what is God doing among us, and what is He calling us to now, and what would be a next series that we might grow or learn in Him. Take a moment and just glance over this slide, and then we'll walk through it a little bit together. So take a moment and just look at it for yourself. In history, Christians have called these they called them means of grace. Means of grace. People, if we're not careful, people translate them into acts or duties I must do in order to be accepted or approved by God or His people. All right? So what they're called historically, that I want to center our attention on, would be means of grace. Ways to receive the goodness of God, the richness of God, the depth of God. They're called means of grace. They're a way to experience the goodness, the grace of God, the gospel, Jesus. Let's be careful, seeing the list, that we don't translate it to all the things I must do and perform in order to be acceptable to God or in order to be accepted at Church at 44. Certainly we want to encourage these things. We want to challenge us to be a people that do these things. But these are the ways we learn, the ways we grow. And it's going to help me lead into the series because it'll point out a couple of things. So if we say there's personal word, prayer, worship, interaction with the body of Christ, and inner life matters, things that you'll never see me do to us. The last thoughts we have before we go to sleep are the things we tend to reflect on in our unconscious mind. And we often wake the next morning with that as the first thought. So the point is, meditating day and night, I don't know if this happens to you or not, but I was just talking to someone who's not sleeping so well, and the things we're thinking about just before we go to sleep, they stay on our minds. Our minds can't switch them off. Our conscious mind put them on play and then left it, and the unconscious mind is playing it all through the night. And then, often, the first thing in the morning will be something in reflection of that all through the night. And so what are you considering? What are you putting in your mind? Now we're going to get ourselves into a series that the concept of humility, to say, what is it? And what's it about? How do we define it? How do we live it? How do we grow in our understanding of it and do it more meaningfully before God and before others? So let me go back to that. So we have the intro phrase, and it's Paul saying to us, we're supposed to live in a certain way on this basis. So if we can study, know, eat, breathe, live, travel to this guy in this place, we have the chance to become like him in the way we relate to God and one another. So he says, do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit. I would just start by saying, that's just the normal, natural, easy way. It's the way I do everything. I always start there. I don't mean to start there. I don't have to try to start there. It's how hard you have to work to get the dust to land on the table in your house or on your porch. How hard do you have to work at that? It just happens. As a matter of fact, it happens so fast. Does anybody else have that experience? You wipe the thing, especially if you have anything with a clear top or some sort of smooth on the outside. If you don't, by the way, it's still there. It just isn't so obvious. But then you do this and you're like, yo! And it'll come up with your fingers, you'll see the soot, the dust, the dirt on there. Our selfishness is pervasive. Don't be surprised by the pervasiveness of your selfishness. Then call yourself to something better, something bigger, and that's here. But in humility, count others more significant than yourselves. That's a choice. It's a decision. Let each of you look not only to his own interest. Can I just make an interesting observation? That biblical self-love it's a good idea. We're not saying never, ever look out for your own interests, but don't only look out for your own interests. Be very careful that you focus mostly or largely on your interests. Can't you rather give attention to the interests of others? There's the call. If you type the word humility into a Bible search, you don't get the word repeated a gajillion times. I think the theme is much bigger than the translation to the word humility, 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 or humble, humble. There's plenty of those, but not as many of them as you might think. So this is giving us ideas of where we're going to go. As we faithfully look into humility, we'll consider these things. So we're going to try to have, on most Sundays, it may not happen every Sunday, but on most Sundays we'll try to have a metaphor or a picture that helps us get, in a little bit more of a three-dimensional way, maybe some part of this lesson about humility. So what would we learn? All of these things would be helping us see Jesus as the author and finisher of our faith. We have the birth of Christ was a humiliation, the life of Christ in humility, or you can call it a humiliation. Okay, there's an interesting thought there. We're going to talk about what is humility not. But historically, they would use humiliation as a positive word. And they would say the humiliation of Christ at his birth, he was God, he became a man, a baby, actually. And babies, they can do nothing for themselves. Bongi and Zianda are learning that in a very, very, very most immediate way right now, this morning.